Hi, my name is Vanessa Judicpa, and I'm from Guam. I'm the only girl out of 5 children, and I grew up in a pretty normal household, you would say. You know, I played with dolls, but I also played with boys just because I was outnumbered. And yeah, I had a very, very, very fun childhood. And my bond with my father was extremely close. So, you know, my dad was always there to give me advice. And my mom was what you would call a stage mom. She would enroll me into cultural dance groups, cheerleading, you know, things that maybe she had wanted to do as a little girl. She didn't have the opportunity to. So it was as if she was living vicariously through me with these groups. But I enjoyed it myself. And that was very good until I entered high school. High school was rough. It was rough because, first of all, I was sent to an all-girls high school, and I didn't know how to be around that many girls because I grew up with all boys. And although it was normal in the primary years, I was entering a stage where, you know, there's puberty, and then there's starting to get interested in boys, but how do I be around boys? And I didn't have any guidance. And the reason why I didn't have any guidance, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and they caught it in time where they could have a mastectomy. And I felt really bad for that time my mom was going through, but I saw a shift in my mom emotionally. I didn't know what depression was until I saw it in my mom experiencing depression. So I knew something was different. I didn't know how to help my mom. My older brothers at least weren't present to see her go through her depression, but it was rough. I was 14. At first I thought I was going to lose my mom. But it was good news that the doctor said they can catch it in time. So I was very relieved that I wasn't going to lose her. But I guess the part of my mom losing a part of her femininity, her womanhood, because my mother, boy, I tell you, when you look at her pictures in the 70s, I was actually looking up to her as my mentor. I mean, even just the way I dress today very much emulates how my mom was in the 70s. She came from a generation where dressing casual was not really thought of. It was really the times that she grew up in where they took such pride in what they wore, not for the sake of being vain about it, but she would always say it's the way it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel confident and good, you know, other people are going to see that in a positive way, and it may encourage others. So I always remembered that as a little girl. Excuse me. You know, prior to her having breast cancer, she was guiding me to be a proper young lady. She would say, you know, stand upright, tuck in stomach, shoulders rolled back, chin up. And it wasn't as far as like I said, in a vain way, but it was more on how you carry yourself. And if you carry yourself well enough, you don't lead others to sin. Or a sin by is like in gossiping, if they say, oh, look at that person sloppy or whatnot. She was mindful about that, I guess, in that way. So I enjoyed those memories with my mom, but it shifted after she had breast cancer. She fell into a deep pit of depression. She didn't have to say, But I knew that she was feeling that way and she was experiencing it because she just wasn't available for me emotionally. So I was about 14 at that time that she was going through her depression from breast cancer, and I couldn't articulate. I had several attempts where I tried to communicate how I was feeling. When I say feeling about what is my mom going through with her depression. And, you know, my mom had me and my youngest brother at an older age. So from the generation she was raised in, they don't really talk about their emotions. So I guess you could say I was born to older parents. So that made a difference as far as communication was concerned. And my mom didn't want to talk about her depression. It was, I guess, a stigma too in the culture that I'm from. And in those days, at least back then, when I was about 14, I don't think there were any resources on the island for counseling. And like I said, for her being in that generation, they also don't really talk about it because it's almost like a stigma. And so because she was so emotionally unavailable, I was so in desire and longing for emotional affection and emotional guidance. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to just read books, but my genre of reading switched to more like romantic novels. And as I read the characters, I felt myself drawn to the female characters in the book. And then I started wondering, wait, why am I crushing on this female character? I couldn't figure out why it was. So I said, oh, well, no one else knows that I am but me. It's just in my thoughts, and no one can hear it. So I'd read it, and then I started turning on the TV, and I would flip through. And of course, I'm at that age where, I no longer want to watch cartoons. I want to watch teen shows. So I would watch teen shows. And then I would watch soap operas. And then anytime they had a very beautiful, attractive character, a woman or girl that's very feminine, similar, I was really drawn to extremely feminine looking girls and women in these TV shows and in these movies. I'd feel very different watching it. I would say something's happening inside, and it's at a period where hormones are raging and not understanding, is this just, stirring feelings in the heart and just feelings everywhere too physically. So I said, well, if I don't speak it, no one's going to hear what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. And so I became obsessed with just wanting to watch all these shows, wanting to read all this material with romanticism, basically. And I would just be such in a world of my own in my mind. And then it came to a point where I wanted to remember what I was watching. So I started to journalize in a diary. And I threw away my older diaries when I was little because I felt that it wasn't relating to how I was feeling now as a teen. And that's when it's, to me, looking back, I think that was the start of it, because it all started with thoughts. The start of my same-sex attraction was thoughts, but now it was moving on to another level where now I was starting to put it down in writing, which was starting to become real to me. I now started to ask myself, well, can I go a step further and at least see if this is really who I am? So the journal can only get me so far. And I wanted to experiment without actually having to physically touch another woman. So I said, okay, well, there's gotta be another way. And then in comes the internet age. And I was so stoked. I was like, what? I can go on this internet and I want to learn everything I needed to learn about computers. And I was getting all the resources, and I was asking around, what is the internet? What is this? And then we had internet cafes popping up. I was about 18 when the internet craze happened. And I was transitioning out of journalizing, and I said, okay, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to meet other women online without actually going through with the app, because I wasn't sure if that's something I wanted to do. So I'd spend my summer job money just going to the internet cafe and getting onto these chat groups. And it was from the chat group where I realized I can be anybody who I wanted to be. I can give myself statistics that I didn't even possess. I can give myself an age to make me look a little bit more wiser that I had experience with women. But really, everything was just in my head of a character that I was wanting to develop. And I had the opportunity to practice this with women on these chats. So the chat for me was an outlet for me to really express how I was feeling with these attractions. So on the online chat is actually where I met my first girlfriend. And boy, it was getting closer to the next level where I didn't know if I was really sure to be physical. And we were just starting to fall in love with each other over the chat. And I thought, okay, it's safe if it just stayed in the chat. Because I told myself, I think I can do this if it's just, getting some sort of emotional response from a woman, from something that I was lacking. So I thought it was just going to stay in the chat, but it then went to the next level. She then flew me out to California. And when I met her, I was like, no one knows me here in California. I don't have family out here. I felt bold and brave to now start acting it out with this girlfriend of mine. And 9 years into that relationship, 9 years, it wasn't always bad. I do have to admit, though, that towards the latter half of that relationship, it became mentally and emotionally abusive. And I was starting to retreat. Because if anything mattered to me, it was the emotional connection. And when that was starting to become distorted, at one point I thought, oh, this is the person I'm going to end up marrying. And when that abuse happened, I did not see marriage in a very positive light. For anyone, marriage for a man and a woman, marriage for gays and lesbians, I didn't see that because it was so distorted from that relationship. And so when that relationship happened and I got out of it in 2008, it was during the time of the Proposition 8, which was an initiative to ban same-sex marriage during the November 2008 California state election. So I voted for Proposition 8, which was a ban against same-sex marriage. And I didn't share that with any of my gay and lesbian friends because that wasn't gonna happen. They would be so upset. But the reason why I voted against that is because I had a very distorted view about marriage from that relationship. So if there was a ban on marriage between a man and a woman from the timing that I got out of the relationship, I would have voted for that too. So I just didn't care for marriage for anyone. I didn't believe that was something that was sacred anymore. So, after I got out of that relationship, then shortly thereafter, I met the woman who I ended up marrying. And it was in that relationship where, she's a very kind person. Just everything about her was just so Christ-like. And I said, maybe that restores my faith in marriage again. And, maybe there is a chance that I could have a chance at marriage because this person actually has very Christ-like qualities. So in the midst of us, having this whirlwind of a relationship and everything was going good, we met a group of friends where they were so involved with Marriage Equality USA. And we ended up obviously becoming very passionate about the cause, to the point where we ended up being the poster couple for the cause. Well, I really thought it's because it's a grassroots movement, and the cause for marriage equality was to provide rights for same-sex couples, for the right to marry. And now that my view of marriage had changed, being in this relationship, I said, well, why not? There should be marriage for all. And I honestly thought that I was on the side of right. I actually thought people like myself are the ones being persecuted by not being granted this right to marry whoever I loved. And so it became a very, very public relationship. Very public. I mean, we ended up on the New York Times, San Jose Mercury News, the Chronicle. At one point, we were interviewed by StoryCorps, which actually was a nonprofit organization that archived our story at the Library of Congress. I believe it was the American Folklife Center in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, it went down in history, our story of us being involved with the cause. It was so public, it started to take a toll on our relationship. It really did. Now I started to ask myself, are we now being identified as a political couple? And then I thought, I don't know if I want this in the relationship, because what else are we going to now talk about? We're talking about so much about the cause, we lost track of what it was in our relationship that we even found in each other. So I needed a break from all the, I guess you would say, chaos and everything going on with it being so publicized, that I said to the woman I was married to, I think we need to relocate to Guam. I need to get in touch with my roots. And before we did, I was actually seeing a therapist, because I still needed to find out, a part of me wanted to find out where in my life, in my young life, did I go off track with my thought process. Because I started to believe that your thoughts really determine your decisions. I believe at the time I was in my mid-30s, and I was seeking therapy because the effects I have from being in that abusive relationship were very enduring throughout the years. I started getting now the traits from my abuser and applying it to my relationship. And I said, I'm becoming something I never was before. So I need to find out, why am I having these traits of my past abuser and applying it to the person who I thought, was very Christ-like in my presence. So after that relationship ended, I still had a lot of unsettling issues with myself. I had the anger management issues, and just still trying to figure out, where in the world, why is there a disconnect with my mom? So, I started spending more time with her one-on-one. We started to talk more about, she started to talk more about the Bible, because I believe that was her way of trying to guide me in a way. She didn't know how to repair what was already done. She recognized that what had happened to me as a teenager, her lack of not being there for me, was so hard that she asked for forgiveness. And I forgave her, but I also said, okay, well, in as much as I don't really want to believe what you're believing in, but I see how it has changed you, Mom. Then can you share more of what had changed you? So we had our first Bible study, and what do you know? She opened up to Romans 1, which was a direct attack on my gay life. And I said, Mom, I'm so sorry, but you're going to have to leave my place. And I can't talk about this. I can't deal with this. And the really amazing thing, what she did walking out was, she said, she didn't debate with me. So I found that odd because we would debate before a lot. And I said, something's different. She's not arguing back with me. And she said, you know, daughter, I'm still going to pray for you. And I said, don't pray for me. And we left it as that. But it didn't end there. She kept Bible studying with me. Even though I told her not to mention Romans 1, she would talk about other parts of the Bible. I had other people evangelize to me from the church too, and I wasn't having it either. I would question them on scriptures on love, which I had misused to apply to my life, but they still redirect me to where Christ talked about love. And so, in as much as the Lord knew He needed to send several people to me, because that's how hardened my heart was. And so in 2017, I believe I was 38 at the time. What was it, 5 years ago? No, 39. Mike Carducci and Pastor Ron and Wayne came out, and there was a speaking engagement at the main church, but I didn't even want to go to that church that day. We were supposed to go to another one, but for some reason I found myself heading to that church, not realizing that Mike Carducci was going to speak. So when he got up there and I listened to him, everything I ever learned from my activist days just kept flooding right back to my mind. I said, what is this? What angle does this guy have? I was very drawn to his testimony, and I was so happy for him that he found God and he wanted to follow Jesus. But at the same time, it was talking about a life that I didn't even tell my church that I had lived that life. It's almost as if I just wanted to be a spectator Christian. So after he gave the talk, I approached him, and I'm so glad he forgives me, because I was just I had a chip off my shoulder. I mean, I was rough around the edges. I came with a city mentality. I came with a you can't pray the gay away mentality. You know, that's not something that goes away overnight. I mean, I was following Jesus. I had already gotten baptized the year before they arrived, but I was still struggling with same-sex attraction. So when I approached Mike, in as much as I had given him such a hostile attitude, it's like as if my angel hit me in the butt or prompted me and said, you need to share your testimony. Why did I agree to share my testimony? And so I followed him to the next church, gave my testimony, and while I was giving it, I was still questioning, why am I sharing this? I don't want to share this. I don't want them to know I came from this life because I'm still struggling with it. Why am I even sharing this? But I truly believe the Holy Spirit wanted me to do so. So all these people, from my mom to other believers in the church to Mike, it took Mike being out there to really show to me it is possible to have victory over this life. So after they left, I decided, Lord, okay, I'm just not going to date anyone, not even men right now. I don't want to just jump into dating men right now. I want to get to fall in love with you first. So I did. It wasn't easy. And I said, Lord, the only way this is going to happen is I've prayed a very specific prayer. You please put a distance between me and all women. Do that because I want to see them as sisters and not lovers. And so the Lord answered my prayers, gave me a full year of just dedicating, reading His Word, understanding it, and telling myself, well, I need to go to church, I need to worship, I need to learn more. And just don't even talk about the gay life. It has nothing to do with that. And then I came to a realization as I read the Bible, wait a minute, homosexuality is not even my original sin. I'm like, it's not. It was the fruit of my original sin. As I dug deeper, pride was my sin. So what I realized was that the things that came so natural to me had put so much distance between me and God. It was the root of my sin. Homosexuality was just the fruit of it. When I realized, Vanessa, your life is so full of pride, you really think you can invent a life with your own set of rules? You think you can have your own sexual autonomy? That's how prideful I was. And I said, homosexuality isn't even the unpardonable sin. My pride is.
I got baptized January 30th, 2016. I got married to my husband on December 13, 2020. It was during the second lockdown here in Guam. And we currently live in Guam. We are praying that the Lord would reveal His will to us day by day, praying for converted heart day by day so that we could be better equipped to serve the Lord. And life is good.